Hello folks, and welcome back to another unfiltered real-world buddy review. I've got my buddy Nathan with me today, and in this video, well, we're going to be doing a three-way comparison of three brand new mainstream crossovers.
That's correct. Keep in mind, this is one of the most popular segments out there, and we have two old school ones that have been out for a little while and one brand new one.
That's right, right behind us over there is, in order, the 2019 Nissan Murano, the 2019 Ford Edge, and the brand new 2019 Honda Passport. So in this video, you guys know the drill. We're going to take them all on our little road course. We're going to do a real world 0 to 60. We're going to do our decibel meter test. We're going to do our Snarf test, and we've been getting a lot of comments about this, Nathan. We're going to follow the prompts this time. We're going to try and do it to the car's specifications to make sure that you guys are all happy. Of course, we're also going to do our ride quality test, the bumpiness test, and then we're going to come back, and at the end of this video, we're going to do two things. We're going to give each of these a rating of buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it, and then we're going to tell you which of these three we would buy. Let's start off with the recently refreshed 2019 Nissan Murano. Nathan has popped the hood so I can tell you what's under there. Of course, this is a bread and butter motor for Nissan. It's the 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6. In this case, it makes 260 horsepower, 240 pound-feet of torque, and it sends that power to all four wheels through a CVT, a continuously variable transmission. It should be noted that the 2019 Murano is available with front-wheel drive, and you still get a CVT if you're only powering the front wheels. All right, Nathan, what do we think about this recently refreshed design for the 2019 Murano?
I give Nissan a lot of kudos for design. They are not afraid to try things that other people aren't doing. It doesn't look like a big shaver. It doesn't look like something that you're going to find everywhere else. This is a unique design that immediately screams this is a Nissan product. While I'm not in love with the front end, especially the low overhang in the front, because, well, it's a crossover, so it should have a little bit more height, I think that the overall design from the sides is fantastic. This floating roof, fantastic. These lines, fantastic. The wheels could be fantastic if they were different wheels. So there you go. Pretty simple, but I think you guys will agree, Nissan has the balls to try something different, and I give them credit for that.
You know, I like the design of the Murano, but I think it's important that we take a look in the trunk and a look in the back seat really quick, because we like to take a look at storage capacity and passenger space. Power lift gate, very nice. This is the SL trim, which is one step below the top end.
Yeah, SL trim means slow lift gate, by the way.
Plenty of space back here. It's not, mind-blowingly large. Obviously, none of these have 3 rows. Big spare back there. You can fold the second row seats, and there's enough space for a few suitcases.
Indeed there is, and there's enough space for me to sit behind Mikey without my knees touching the seat.
That's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I really do like the space in here.
What about headroom?
Room in here is pretty good. I'm sitting behind Mikey. Mikey's 6'2", I'm 6'1". No problem with space. Headroom is pretty good, even with the panoramic sunroof, because that drops down a little bit. Not too bad for back seat space at all.
All right, let's go for a drive, Nathan.
Hell yes.
Alrighty. Ooh, I am up here right now.
All right, it's the Nissan Nizzle. And let's get the frizzle gizzle.
Yep, let's get the frizzle gizzle. Make sure our solo DL is turned on. Boom, we got our Hula girl, we got our sound meter.
Can we talk about the interior for just a second? Because
Please.
It's something that kind of gets me, because they're so close to making an awesome interior. Then they use this.
Plastic.
It doesn't look like metal. It looks like plastic.
And this looks like plastic. This looks like it should be metal, but that's also plastic.
It's just, I think that overall, this design still screams older Nissan.
It does.
And with the exterior looking so modern and unique, they really should try to do something that's a little bit more catchy.
You know what I don't like right now, right away? I cannot adjust the height of this seat. And I am rather close to the roof. I'm going to have to go backwards.
Yeah, just lean back. You'll be fine.
I'm just going to have to lean back.
It's something to think about. I'm fine with this seat. I can drop it way down.
One good point before we get on the road?
Yeah.
Look at this.
Thank you for no buttons.
It's an actual gear lever.
Yeah, even though it's hooked up to a CVT, so there's really no reason to have this part to the side.
It's not really doing much other than just changing what sort of revs you're seeing. But let's get on the road and underway. So one cool thing for 2019, despite the mildly refreshed interior and the slightly less mildly refreshed exterior, is this infotainment system, which now features Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Hooray, it's here. That's one of those features that, you know, it's not like the end of the world if a car doesn't have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but it's something that I really like to have because I like it when a car interacts with my smartphone in a fairly seamless way. Some other things I'm noticing about the interior right away. I mean, okay, so I'm lacking for headroom a little bit, but otherwise, you know, we have plenty of shoulder room. We're not bumping elbows at all, and there's actually a lot of nice little cubbies in here. There's one down next to my ankle. Of course, there's a big door pocket, a big center console with plenty of space. You could fit a small like tablet or laptop in there, maybe.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty comfortable place to be right off the bat.
I don't mind the driver's position at all. It's, for me, it's great. Actually seeing out the rear is a bit of a challenge because you have those weird pillars in the back. Yeah, and they do impede a little bit on rear visibility. So that is one issue. The other two vehicles I don't think have it quite as much.
Not quite as bad. Really quickly, before we do our 0 to 60 test, because we're close to that, I did want to mention pricing. So like I said, this is the SL all-wheel drive trim, right?
Right.
And according to the Murano, the price comes out to around $44,000 MSRP.
That's really good.
It's actually really not bad, considering you get this big touchscreen. We have all sorts of driver enhancement features,
heated,
heated seats up here in the front. It's actually a fairly nice place, and I think that's a pretty decent value overall.
Nissan's good with value, and I'll give them credit on this vehicle because it does an awful lot for what I consider to be a reasonable amount of money. However, one of the big things about having a vehicle with a big, fat, juicy, old-school V6 is having good acceleration.
Right? Ideally, at least, right? Ideally.
Right. So, this is what I'm going to do. Now, this CVT, if I recall, doesn't like to be pushed too hard.
Right.
Revving. So let's get it to 0 and then
stop. Yep. And slow pickup.
Now remember, guys, we're over a mile above sea level here, which will affect a vehicle like this big time.
And we have 3 people in the car.
3 people.
And boom.
Ooh, that ain't fast.
That is slow. 11.82 seconds, 0 to 60 with 3 people in the car at a mile above sea level. Not amazing. Interesting result. A little louder than I think we're used to.
And you know what? I'm hearing it a lot over here. I can hear road noise.
There's a lot of road noise, maybe some wind noise. I think the highway ride is very comfortable.
Yeah, actually has a really good ride. It's just that it's a little bit on the noisy side. It's just a little noisy.
That could be the tires, though. That could be a number of things.
Yeah, fortunately the stereo system's really good, so you're able to crank it and not hear all that noise.
Indeed it is. You know what time it is, Nathan?
It's time to find Snarfs.
It's time to try and find Snarfs. So you guys have been complaining a little bit about the Snarfs test in the comments.
I agree with that.
The reason we're testing this is because it's something that you might want to use on a regular basis if you own one of these vehicles. So let's try it out. We're gonna follow the prompts that the car gives us, try and be as fair as possible with this test.
Alrighty, so
it's right above the OK button there. Yeah.
Please say or select a command.
Navigation.
Navigation. Please say or select a command from the displayed list.
POI by category.
POI by category. Please say a POI category or select a category from the displayed list.
Restaurant.
Restaurant. Please say or select a command from the displayed list.
Near current location.
Near current location.
Goodness gracious.
Please say or select
actually
an
got
item
it.
number from the displayed list.
5.
All right. Look at that.
5.
Hey.
Calculate route or adjust location.
Holy crap, we found it.
We did find it.
We found
Okay.
Snarfs.
All right, let's shut this down.
Get out of here. Yeah, forget about that. So that's a pass.
Voice recognition.
That is a pass. It
Amazingly.
just takes forever.
It took forever.
And it's really slow, much slower than a phone. Hey, we're about to hit our stability test.
Bumpy
our
road
bumpy
test.
road test.
So depending on how much the Hula girl is dancing, we rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is a good score. 10 is a bad score. She's dancing
a lot.
a fair amount. Not as much as I feel like I'm getting bumped around, though. I mean,
Yeah.
the ride is pretty comfortable.
Yeah, she shook a few times right when we were starting, a lot more than I expected. I'm gonna go to a 4.
I think a 4 is a good answer. I'm gonna go with a half answer. I'm gonna go 4.5 because I think it was like fairly comfortable, but not perfect. You know,
Alright.
not perfect, but pretty comfortable ride. I like the sound of this engine, by the way.
It's a VQ series engine. I mean, they always sound good. I love this engine. I'm so disappointed that they hooked it up to something that is just barely leaking out the power to the wheels.
Yeah,
you know what I
that was
mean?
a really slow 0 to 60.
It really was. Now, getting up to 30 is relatively quick. Okay,
Yeah, it
so
wasn't
it's
bad.
not too slow on that. So around city, you're not going to notice a huge difference. By the way, the steering inputs aren't too bad. They're not overboosted. I mean, this is obviously electrically assisted power steering.
Oh yeah.
But it feels pretty good. The weight, I like the weight of the steering. It's lightweight, but then there's a little bit of extra heft to it when we were going around one of the corners that threw our cameraman almost through the window.
Yep.
So, good stuff there. So there's a lot of good with this vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And if it only had a more intuitive transmission, or if they found a way to take the power and put it to the ground
More effectively.
More effectively,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think you're right.
Even if it's a CVT, I've seen other cars with CVTs that do that are quicker. So the bottom line is that, you know, Nissan CVT's always been a bit of an issue, and frankly speaking, what's taken away from this car being an awesome choice is this.
I could not agree with you more, Nathan. Now, I did want to point out actually a little bit more about this infotainment screen. Obviously, it's a fairly large touchscreen display.
Yeah.
And they've updated the graphics quite a bit. If you look at some of the models from Nissan from like last year even, the display was a much lower resolution. It just wasn't as nice to interact with. This one, however, looks really nice.
It looks modern.
It looks modern.
Yeah, I'll say that.
The touchscreen is fairly responsive, right? I mean, you can go, you know, info. Well, maybe it's not that responsive. No, it usually works pretty well. I misclicked. I fat fingered it. This is a big upgrade in my book from the previous model year on the infotainment system. I also like how it's not a big like tablet stuck on the dashboard.
Yeah,
right?
I know that's the new thing now, and everybody's going to do it, and they're going to have these giant things, and I'm sure Nissan will be there eventually. But for now, I like the size of this. It doesn't draw my eye, but at the same time, I don't have to really look for it in some small little pod
It's
somewhere.
right where you need it to be.
Yeah, I'm okay
exactly.
with that. I really am. I'm okay with the overall design of the interior, except for the fact that it looks old. Once again, it's just there's a lot of good and only a little bit of bad.
Only a little bit of bad, but enough bad that I'm kind of like waffling on this car. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hate it, but there's nothing that super duper wows me about it either.
I wish it was as fast as it looks.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I wish.
That would be the one thing, or at least as fun as it looks on the outside, because it really does look fun and exciting on the outside. And yeah, from the inside and from the driver's seat, it's not quite that much.
All right, let's park it and we'll hop into the Ford Edge and give that a little spin.
Looking forward to that.
Ooh, also look at this, the 360 top-down display.
I really like this. Nissan was one of the first companies to do this, and frankly speaking, this is something they absolutely kick butt at, and good for them.
The one problem is that the resolution is kind of low. It's like potato quality.
Yeah.
But it does work pretty well.
It does work pretty well. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of selection here.
You kind of get the rear angle and the top down.
But I'm okay with that too, and it works well.
It
So.
does work well.
Yeah, cool.
All right, Ford. Moving on to the 2019 Ford Edge. Nathan, pop the hood. Under the hood of this Ford Edge is, well, I'll tell you in exactly 1 second. Yep. Oh yeah. There's the lever. Pull the lever, Kronk. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. Here it is. It's a 2-liter, 4-cylinder EcoBoost turbocharged engine that makes 245 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. This one sends power to all 4 wheels. It's all-wheel drive once again through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, it should be noted once again that the Ford Edge is also available in a front-wheel drive configuration, but it still uses the 2-liter turbo EcoBoost and an 8-speed automatic transmission, unless you get the Ford Edge ST, which of course has a V6 EcoBoost and a lot of horsepower. But that's not the one we're talking about today. Nathan, tell them about styling.
Well, they have significantly changed the styling from the beginning, and I guess they have. It doesn't really look that different to me. Okay, yeah, the front end is different. They have the old Fusion headlights up here, and they changed the grille around a little bit. The overall skin and styling, though, really do look like the old Edge. I think that's done on purpose. I think they want it to look like the Edge. Unfortunately for me, I've never really enjoyed the styling of the Edge, so saying that this is handsome is a bit of a stretch for me. However, I will say this, I do like the wheels. Hey dude, let's check out the trunk and the back seat.
Let's take a look. So of course, this is the titanium trim, which for the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine is one of the upper trims you can get. The next trim above this would be the ST, which is obviously more expensive. Now, one thing I noticed right away comparing this to the Murano is that this opening is much bigger.
Yeah, it is, and it's much more user-friendly. It's a lot more usable space, I should say. And then, of course, you have big spare with some good storage underneath.
I do like the cubbies that they include.
I do too. I really do like the fact that they include that, and you're going to see a move towards that with other SUVs in the future.
Exactly.
Another thing is that they do have some storage pockets back here. It's a pretty nice design, and I wanted to point out rear seat space. Check this out. So, like the Nissan, we also have a panoramic sunroof in here, but unlike the Nissan, my head is hitting here. Now, unfortunately, that really does indicate a lack of space. So, while my legs have some pretty good room, and I'm sitting behind Mike is 6'2", I'm 6'1", I have good leg room and not so good headroom.
Should we go for a drive?
Go for a drive!
Okie dokie. So popping in here again right away.
Dude, I'm so much taller than you right now.
Yeah, you're up there. You might want to lower that a little bit
I'll
if you
see
can.
if I can.
2-liter EcoBoost roaring to life.
I have no problems with Ford's EcoBoost engines or EcoBoost.
I'm actually a big fan. One thing I'm not a big fan of though, this
rotary dial.
This rotary dial doohickey right here.
The wave of the future.
And it's also the same thing that's going into the brand new Ford Mustang Shelby GT500, which is a little comical if you ask me.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about materials here on the inside?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of good things to say about the interior either. It's not bad. Nothing about this is bad at all. This is subdued, and I think they wanted a little bit of an elegant look. I don't really see it, but what I do see is good use of foam rubber here, which I like, and on the door sills, thank you. Yep. That's good for the elbows.
But a lot of this stuff is very, very hard plastics up in here.
Yeah, they are.
What I mean?
I do like the fact that the controls are simplified, and Sync has recently proven itself to be a much better system than the originals.
I agree.
So they've really gone to another level with Sync, so that's great. But overall, I don't really see anything that I love about the interior, anything that really stands out that makes me go, yeah, I like that.
There's a couple things that I am kind of a fan of. For one, this big cubby up here, I think that's neat. I don't know exactly what you'd toss in there.
That's where Roman would
sunglasses.
put his 9mm.
Right, because Roman carries a 9mm.
He carries a GAT.
Of course he does. The other thing I like is down here, because in this little cubby down here, there is space for your phone with a wireless charger.
Or Roman's 22.
Or Roman's 22, because he keeps both
he has another GAT.
at the same time. Right, because
he's
Roman
armed.
is such a big fan of guns. Anyways, pricing before we get onto the freeway here, I had to price this one out on the Builder online, and we're coming out to a price of about $48,000.
It's a little steep for not having the top of the line engine.
It's pretty expensive, especially compared to the Murano, which was what, about 44. So we'll let this come to a complete stop. I'm gonna engine torque it a little bit and take off. Let's see what the EcoBoost does.
See, right off the bat, that EcoBoost is telling me it's a turbo.
Much better pickup.
Yeah, off the line, this thing is vastly superior to the Nissan.
Wow, look at that. 9.33 seconds.
That's soundly beating the Nissan by around 2 seconds.
By a good margin, that is beating the Nissan.
Yeah, you know, well done Ford on that. Yeah. Once again, the EcoBoost engine's probably the highlight of this vehicle.
I have to say I'm a big fan of the engine. Let's go ahead and do our decibel meter test.
Mike, do the mic. Because
I get it.
Sorry.
Yes, much quieter. We're sitting again around 60 decibels.
Ford has done quiet tuning for years. They know how to make a quiet car. Another kudo to Ford. Their trucks are very quiet. The cars are very quiet. Well done. Not exactly what I wasn't surprised.
No, I'm not surprised.
not
And
surprised.
you can really hear the difference. I mean, the Nissan had a noticeable amount more road noise than this does.
Yeah, overall noise.
Much quieter. And the highway ride, once again, is actually fairly comfortable. I mean, it's very smooth, very quiet.
Yeah, it might be a little bit less, I don't know, sporty feeling than the Nissan in terms of the Nissan, and you can feel a little bit more bumps and whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
But we'll find that out soon enough to see how well this thing rides.
Indeed.
But I think this is softer.
I think this might be a little softer, but I'm curious to see how the Hula Girl test compares.
And I'm really curious to see if we can find sandwiches.
I know. We're 1 for 1 so far. Let's see if we can go 2 for 2. That would be kind of nice.
Okay. Hit it.
Let me we'll finish turning and then I'll press
Hit it. No patience.
Please say a command.
Find a place.
Searching nearby. Please say the name of the POI.
Snarf's Sandwiches.
Please say a line number.
Number 1.
When ready, press the voice button and
Wow.
then say set as destination.
Look at that.
That is
Cancel.
impressive.
That is amazing. We're 2 for 2, dude.
Yeah, not only that, though, that was 3 times as fast as the Nissan.
Yeah, we were like halfway down this road by the time
And
the
it's
Nissan
only a
was
tick
done.
or two off of what it would take my phone to find it.
Yeah, that was actually really
That was
quick.
really, once again, the sync system has
The
proven
new sync
itself.
system,
It's
yeah.
really impressive. So
Wow.
another, a very well done Ford. Your electronics are starting to really kick ass.
That was remarkably fast.
Yep.
I'm very impressed by that.
Yep.
Okay, so we're coming up once again to the Bumpy Road test.
Right.
Or the ride quality test, whatever. We should come up with a name for that at some point. But the Bumpy Ride test.
I like the Hula Girl test.
The Hula
first.
Girl test, that's the name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, a scale of 1 to 10 will rate how much the Hula Girl is dancing. 1 is a good score, 10 is a bad score.
Right.
You want less dancing in this case.
If it's a 10, we're most likely in a Ferrari.
We're jarred around. She's got her hips swinging there a little bit.
Yeah, but
But-
the Nissan, right about here, I noticed, no, she didn't do it as much as the Nissan
I
did.
think this is less than the Nissan for sure. Interesting. Okay, here she's swinging a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say they're pretty close.
They're pretty close, but I feel like the ride was more controlled in the Ford than in the Nissan.
I'm going to give it the same score, personally.
You're gonna
Give
go
it
a 4?
Yeah, I'm giving it a 4.
I'm gonna go a little better than the Nissan. I gave it a 4.5 on the Nissan. I'm gonna go for a 3.5 on the Ford. I think this is actually a pretty
so
good
you
score.
say it's a better ride.
I
Okay,
think
that's
it's
fair enough,
I think this is
though.
a better ride than the Nissan.
It certainly is quieter.
Certainly quieter. Depending on the road surface, a little less bumpy as well.
The Nissan seats were more comfortable, to be honest.
I can give you that one. I think the Nissan did have more comfortable seats.
Yeah.
But you know what the Nissan doesn't have? An 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission.
You're right about that.
That the Nissan most certainly does not have.
It's a funny thing because you juggle about, what do you like, what do you not like, what must you have, and for mid $40,000 range, which a lot of these vehicles compete at.
Yep.
I want something that makes me smile a little bit when I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to the fact that this doesn't do that for me.
This doesn't put a huge smile on my face. I love the engine.
Engine's great.
The engine's great. The transmission, the drivetrain altogether is
Ford
great.
power is excellent.
But I'm not excited by this car. And it's a family crossover, right? So maybe I'm not supposed to be that excited by this car.
But, that's the thing, is that some people are baking more excitement into their vehicles now.
Indeed.
I think Ford is sort of missing the boat, and they're kind of sticking with this conservative overtone that I'm just not a big fan of. But with that being said, well done on this infotainment system.
Great on the infotainment system.
By the way, the stereo system is quite good. Bang & Olufsen, I believe.
Also, once again, we don't have that silly tablet slapped on the dashboard. This is nicely integrated as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a matter of time before everybody does something like that, but I like the size of this one as well.
Contrary to the Nissan, we also have cooled or air-conditioned seats, actually, as it turns out, up here in the front. Which is very nice because I like having either a warm or cold butt, depending on what the weather is like outside. Currently, it's very cold in Colorado. But I like the infotainment system quite a bit. This car is very logically laid out. Everything is in a place where it makes sense. You're not
that
surprised.
probably speaks to the buyer of a car like this, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So there's probably 2 different ways you can go. You can go for the logic, or you can go for something that gives you a little bit more
more
of a spunk.
passion. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right. The thing about this car, and the one thing that makes it stand out, is the fact that it does have the EcoBoost engine, and at high elevation, it's a killer for naturally or normally aspirated cars.
Yep.
So that is definitely a plus for the EcoBoost, and
Indeed.
you know, that you gotta say that it's definitely.
I mean, the Nissan had 260 horsepower. This has 245 horsepower.
But this thing feels twice as lively.
And this feels way quick. I mean, it was way quicker. 2 seconds quicker, 0 to 60
That's
with the same load.
Yeah.
So I guess that proves the worth of turbocharging, especially up here at a mile above sea level. Maybe down at sea level, that would be a different story.
I'm sure it would be, but that's a whole different thing. You know, we can only make certain assumptions.
That's why it's a real-world, unfiltered buddy review.
Yeah.
Not just some regular old review.
But I gotta tell you, I'm scratching my head a little bit because between the lack of backseat space, headspace,
Yeah, the back seat is a little small.
design, the exterior design, I don't know. I'm waffling. You said you were waffling last time. This time I'm waffling.
This time you're waffling. I'm a little happier with the Edge overall so far, but I'm going to reserve my final judgment until we get out of the Passport. So let's hop in there. I'll park this, and we'll do our last test.
Sounds good.
Last but not least, the 2019 Honda Passport. Nathan, he's on it. Pop the hood. Under here, we're going back up in our cylinder count, folks. This, of course, is, we have a little hood strut this time, a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6, just like the Nissan actually, but this one makes 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. It sends its power to all four wheels once again, but this time through a 9-speed automatic transmission. And well, I think this engine might be a really interesting contestant on our real-world 0 to 60 test. Nathan, can you tell them a little bit about the styling?
Okay, so what you're looking at is a Honda Pilot that's been condensed by about 6 inches and change. And by doing that, what they managed to do is make the rear end look great. They removed it, they changed the shape of it. It's better for approach and departure angles because they lifted it. So they've done a lot to make a Pilot look cooler. The Passport has some nice lines on it. Nothing that's really polarizing, I would say. I like the front end design. It doesn't look like a truck, but I'm okay with that. I love the side design. I like the profile of it, especially the back. It's the tushy that I'm all about. Love it. Like what they did.
You know what else I really like, Nathan?
Tell me.
I love how they've kind of blacked it out a little bit. They give it those, you know, the black grille, the black front end, the black wheels. It's got that little, you know, aggressive, sporty touches to it. And I think
and everything lifts in the back, you know what I mean? It lifts up and it comes down. I do like the way this looks. And you know what else I like? Look how big this is.
It's absolutely enormous.
And that's because you're talking about the same space, basically, width-wise, as a Honda Pilot. And because of that, you have a massive interior. And here's what's really cool. Ba-boom.
I love that. I love this feature.
Tons of space, and then more space.
See, once again, is perfect for, like, if you have groceries, right? Or if you're parking somewhere, you want to hide some valuables.
Your hacky sack and stuff, frisbee.
I'm an avid hacky sacker. I think this is a really clever use of space. And the cabin itself is enormous to begin with, but then they've just found ways to expand it even further. Which
they really did an awesome job with that. Now, let's check out the back seat. Interesting stuff here, too. Ta-da! Even more space behind Mikey, or myself for that matter. Once again, he's 6'2", I'm 6'1". Lots of legroom, lots of headroom. Now, unlike the other two vehicles, this does not have a large panoramic sunroof. It has a small one. And I think that's kind of a bummer. I know a lot of people prefer to have that. I would. These seats do recline. And they slide too, baby. All in all, very comfortable back seats. Shall we go for a ride?
Yep. Yeah, instantly when you step in here, dude, it's cavernous. It is absolutely
There
huge.
is so much shoulder space between you and I. And believe me, guys, one of the things that happens when you're working at TFL, where everybody's required to be apparently over 6 feet tall and large, we usually bump elbows or shoulders.
We value our shoulder space.
We're not bumping.
You know what else I like a lot? I love these armrests. So you can fold them up, right? Put on your seatbelt, whatever.
Right.
Then you bring them down and you can click them up into whatever height you want.
Yep.
I think these are great. I love having, this reminds me of like an early 2000s Land Rover or Range Rover.
Yep.
I love that feature. Instantly, the quality of the materials in here is really nice. I love this. Look at this cubby right here. That's just
massive,
enormous. You have these little inserts you can slide around. I really like the interior. It's just a well done use of space once again.
Yeah, Honda is really good at packaging, and the thing is that this interior isn't that much different from the Honda Pilot.
Indeed.
Keep that in mind. They're very similar up here. So, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing because they knew they had a pretty good setup to begin with.
Yep.
The one thing, and I will complain about this 2 or 3 times today, that I don't like is this.
Yeah, your push button transmission.
Do not like the push button transmission. Now, I've driven probably a dozen vehicles that have this type of transmission.
Yep.
And I still have to look down. I still have to find where my fingers are supposed to go in order to hit the right buttons.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to grab something and go click, 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 click. I much prefer that, and I think a lot of consumers do. So Honda and Acura, for that matter, having the push button system, I really think that they went the wrong direction with that.
Yeah, you know, I think this and the rotary dial, the reason we like the normal gear lever, right, is because we've been using them for the past, well, you've been using them for a lot longer than I have,
Yeah.
but I've been using them for the past however many years, right, and we're just used to them, right, they make sense, it's what we've known for a long time, and now people are trying to change that up, and this works. I think it's one of those things that you'd get used to eventually, but it's just a pain to have to get used to something else when the old system worked just fine.
Why make something more convoluted and difficult to use? That's my biggest question about this.
that's a good
Why do you have to
question.
constantly move around and find different buttons for everything?
I don't have a good answer to that
I don't see
question.
the safety in that. I don't see the practicality in it. They say it allows a little bit more space. Look, dude, a stick here. I can still lift my coffee up and over it and be okay.
I'm not that lazy, you know what I mean? Really quick, let's talk about pricing. So this is the Elite trim, which is the top end trim for the Honda Passport. And our price right now is coming out to around $44,000, actually very close in price to the Murano. So that's kind of the range we're looking at here, the mid $40,000 range, which means you get a lot of standard features. This comes with Honda Sensing Standard, which is like adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, pedestrian detection, emergency braking, stuff like that.
Right.
Which I should mention the other 2 cars have as well.
Now, bear in mind, guys, I'm about to do the 0 to 60, but I have to keep in mind that I do have snow tires on this vehicle. And with the snow tires, that means that it may not be as good traction-wise. Off the line,
Good pickup.
already really good pickup.
Listen to the VTEC.
It's a good sounding engine. They deliberately made it sound, by the way, better.
Ooh, wow, that's close. 9.23.
I believe that's better.
That's 1/10 of a second quicker than the turbocharged Ford.
Now, this is a
Wow.
bigger vehicle.
This
than
is
the
a
Ford.
bigger vehicle.
So
Slightly.
that's impressive.
That is really impressive. Good job.
Yep.
Wow, that's
And-
really good.
Guys, let me tell you, I love the way this thing feels on the road.
Oh, I
It's
really like
hunkered down, it's big. But all in all, I would say that the overall driving feel of this vehicle is absolutely excellent.
That could also totally be due to the snow tires too, which are
the
on here.
noise or the driving?
The noise.
I was
The
gonna say,
noise could
Normally, snow tires don't make you drive,
Right,
make
no,
it feel
the
any better.
noise could be to the snow tires.
Speaking of noise, let's make a good noise and find ourselves some sandwiches.
Like, go 3 for 3. Let's see if we can do it. That would be amazing.
All right, so this one, I hit the prompt here.
Yep.
Navigation,
Say a navigation command.
find place,
Say a place.
Snarf's sandwiches.
Searching for Snarf sandwiches.
Oh. Could we go
Select an item.
Number 1?
Wow!
3 for 3.
I would say that's just as fast as the Fords.
That might have, yeah, just as quick, if not, you know.
They were really close.
I couldn't tell you the timing to be
No,
exact.
but the bottom line is that that's a really good system. That did it in no time at all.
That was really, really quick, actually.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
I am impressed. So, bottom line, once again, Honda did something right with this system. Oh, and by the way, guys,
Volume knob.
volume control knob.
Yep, it's back. Honda learned their lesson on that one. I actually really like this infotainment system too. Of the 3 that we've looked at today, this is by far the nicest resolution. Again, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are available. It's a really good system. We'll talk about it more after we do our Bumpy road test, the Hula Girl test. So we're coming up on the Bumpy section. Again, 1 to 10 scale. A 1 is good, a 10 is bad. Here we go.
She's moving.
She's moving a little bit. I have to say, so they lifted the Passport, right?
Yep.
And compared to the Pilot, I think it has a fairly stiffer ride.
You might be right. It may have something to do with the standard 20-inch wheels too.
That could also do it.
I'm going to give it a, yeah, it doesn't score as well as the other two.
I think it's worse than the other two in terms of bumpiness. I'm going to give it a 5.
Yep. I agree with you right there.
All right, we're spot on with our scores there.
But it dispensed with those bumps without really upsetting the interior.
Well, and as a result of being a little stiffer, it actually feels a little sportier to drive too.
A little tiny bit.
Which I am still at a stage in my life where I'm perfectly happy giving up some comfort for a little bit of sport. You know what I mean?
There's a lot to like with this vehicle. I did not expect to like it as much as I do.
I was kind of thinking, okay, it's just going to be a smaller Pilot, but it somehow feels like it's more than just a smaller Pilot, doesn't it?
Right, it does, and that's the credit to Honda, because they slated this to be put in directly between the CR-V and the Pilot, right? This is exactly where this is supposed to be marketing-wise and all that. Our guy Steven took this off-road in Moab. We have 2 videos on that.
He did do that, yeah.
We have an ice video coming up with this thing, going on snow and ice. There's a lot that's been done with this vehicle, but the bottom line is that Honda knows that they have to appease an awful lot of people to make this thing sell.
Oh yeah.
And I think that they've come up with a really good combination for that. The question is the local buyer, the guy who's really looking for something like this, aware of what it really is?
That's a good question.
You know what I mean?
That is a good, functionally, it's on the same platform as the Pilot and as the Ridgeline.
Right.
It's the same wheelbase. Speaking of Pilots,
yep, we're
perfect
next one.
timing. There's
yeah,
one right
111-inch wheelbase, which is actually a pretty good size wheelbase. But once again, this is 6 inches and change smaller lengthwise than the Pilot. So yeah, but widthwise, I love how wide this thing is.
It's really comfortable.
It's just so big, and I stretch out.
Back to this infotainment system really quickly.
Please.
While we're still here, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. Again, no tablet here. It's nicely integrated into the dashboard.
Yep.
There is this piano black gloss finish, which I think will result in a lot of fingerprints, but you'll just have to live with that. One more thing to point out, this also has a wireless charging pad right down there, which I love. I love wireless charging.
I do too.
It's great.
They should be standard in all cars.
They definitely should. And I think we're getting to that point as well. But the Passport has really impressed me, Nathan.
Yeah.
I was excited because there was a lot of hype around it when it first was announced. I think a lot of people were interested in it. And I'm really happy to say that I think Honda has delivered a pretty good product.
Yeah, they're definitely in the game to win it. Now, what's funny is that this is actually being marketed against the Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I can't agree with that.
I'm not sure if I agree with that.
No, but this is what Honda marketing is saying, and I'm like, guys, really? Are you sure about that? Because that's a totally different vehicle.
I think what they're going for with that is the sort of off-road prowess that they want.
There's no way that this could match that.
I don't think it could.
No, I talked to Steven about that. But with that being said, for an SUV that gets you through crappy winter conditions, can take you on light off-roading excursions, but most importantly, take your family and your stuff places that you need to go, I'm really impressed.
I am super impressed. I'm having dreams already, Nathan. A set of KO2s on some 17-inch rims.
You're starting to talk like a proper TFL guy.
A little Yakima roof box up there, a roof rack or something like that. I think that could be a pretty cool setup.
Have Tommy run out and spray paint something on it?
Yeah, exactly. A bull bar, a brush guard up there. That would look kind of badass, right? All right, let's hop out. We'll give it a rating of, and we'll give the rest of them a rating as well, and then tell you which one of these 3 we would buy. Okay, Nathan, it's time for our ratings. We'll start with the Nissan Murano. Buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it.
I'll give it a lease it. I actually think it's a really good vehicle in many ways. CVT I'm not wild about, but in terms of comfort, in terms of ride, in terms of its overall looks, I think it's a fairly original vehicle and it's still holding its age quite well. So yeah, I'll lease it.
This 2019, it's a mild refresh as we talked about. I'm also going to give it a lease it. I think that V6 engine, the 3.5, great engine. I like how it rides. I don't love the CVT, just like you, but I think the price is right, and I think it would be a great vehicle to have in your driveway. I just don't want to buy it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on.
Moving on. The Ford Edge.
Rent it.
A hard rent it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Ford, you guys are Ford. You're the biggest company in the world nearly, and you still have this vehicle that looks exactly the same pretty much as before. It needs a whole new look. Look at what they did with Nissan. Now look what they did with Ford. It's the looks that I'm really hung up on, and it's not just the exterior looks. I don't like the interior either. The performance is good, I'll give you credit. I really like the fact that they don't use a CVT. But I'm sorry, it just looks and feels old. So yeah, rent it.
You know, I think I liked this a little bit better than I liked the Nissan, spoiler alerts. I'm gonna give this a lease it as well. Again, I don't think it's quite worth the buy it rating, but I do like the way it drives. I actually like the 2-liter turbocharged engine. I don't mind how it looks. This car, it does all right for me. It's kind of on par with the Nissan.
Okay.
But let's move on to the Honda.
All right.
Okay, last but not least, Nathan, the Honda Passport. Buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it.
Buy it, without a doubt. They did something really special with this vehicle. I thought that being that the Pilot and Passport were basically the same vehicle, it would be the same vehicle, and it's not. This is a completely different vehicle. It drives square-shouldered. It feels comfortable inside. It's really big, it's really wide inside, which is good for a big guy. I like the engine transmission setup. Actually, the only thing I don't like about it is the push-button transmission. Everything else about this vehicle, I like.
Yeah, you know, I'm in the same boat. Buy it for me for the Honda Passport. I think it's got just a slightly different look from the Pilot, right? It's a little bit stubbier, a little bit higher off the ground.
Right.
It looks a little more aggressive. The black wheels, the black grille. I like how they've made it just a little more off-road looking. And yeah, I'm just like you. I love the way it drives. The V6 engine, it's the most powerful engine out of the bunch right here. I like the 9-speed automatic transmission, the push button. You know, I think it's one of those things that I could get used to with enough time. But for me, the Passport is a buy it as well. Okay, Nathan, I think it's time then that we tell these folks which of these three we would buy and take home ourselves, although I think it's kind of obvious at this point.
Yeah, for me, it's pretty easy. Yeah, the Passport, for sure, I would buy it. But you know what? I wouldn't mind a vehicle like the Nissan Murano in my driveway.
Yeah, you know, I think the Passport is the one of these three that I would be taking home. If I had a second choice, maybe the Ford Edge, but I think the Passport killed this competition.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. We don't normally do 3, so thanks for sitting through all of this. Whoop! It was a long one.
Sure was. For the Fastlane Car, I'm Mike Curtis.
I'm Nathan Adlin.
We'll see you guys next time.